your lick back. Get your lick back. If a nigga hold you something, ain't no chit chat. Better stay up out the way, don't get your issue splat. Stop letting this shit slide and get your lick back. And get your lick back. I feel like I'm JX. J-Way. I'm a perfectionist. Adderall got me restless. I'm gone. Run with a wild crew, they get reckless. Young boy, come up off that neck. Give me that. To the trends. See a lead, be the band.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of Corner to Copa. It's been a little bit, but the winter meetings have begun, so it was only right that we got back in here. The Tigers have made a few little moves or whatever, but you know how the Tigers do. We start slow. We gotta gradually get into it, but as we get closer to the holidays, Coach, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Yeah, so you said the holidays. Dude, it is cold as shit here in Michigan now. It's real cold. My driveway's covered nice. But you know what? Where we're cold out here, the winter meetings are hot. 24 to 48 hours. Of course, right as it's about to end and they're wrapping up the almost 2 week long session down there in Florida. But yeah, we've got some juicy stuff here nationally and also within our own organization, and some trajectories and perhaps something else I think you might have warming up for us.
Yeah, so you know how the Tigers do. They swing for the fences early. The first move that they made so far was going after. His last name's Anderson. What's his first name? Kyle? Drew Anderson. Signing him to a 1-year deal for $7 million with a club option for $10 million in 2027, which is nice. I mean, it's not a major contract, but this is for somebody that has never touched the field in the major leagues. He only made it as far as AAA. He was previously in Japan. Was invited to spring training in Detroit, and then went over to Korea, and that resulted in obviously they liked enough of what they saw over in the KBO to spend some money on him, because I think he's going to be a start. I think he is going to be a starter. We got a little bit of news about Jackson Jobe as well, which kind of gives an indication as to why we're still looking for starting pitching depth, and that's that he could be ready by September, I believe. Is that correct?
The quote that Scott Harris slid in earlier in the week was, "I hope he is in competitive throwing by September." I have no idea what that means, and this guy's becoming more and more cryptic, like he's solving a Rubik's Cube instead of just signing players already.
Yeah. So so we know what we have. I mean, we know what we have currently right now as far as Skubal, Mize, Flaherty, Olsen, more than likely. Then you got your Monteros, your SGLs, you got guys like that. But yeah, Anderson, I think the velocity on his fastball, caps out about 95 miles per hour. And, we're obviously familiar with him. In 2024, he, was sent to AAA. He had a few outings. Well, this is what he did in 2024. In 2024, he was 11-3 with a 3.89 ERA. So, not pretty good. He ate up a bunch of innings, 115 innings, 98 hits allowed. So, for what it's worth, at the competition he was playing with, he was solid. So, I don't know what to make of that. That was our first attempt. And any other information that you got from him? Do you know anything else about him?
Not really. I feel like this is, to your point, it's a depth or an insurance policy piece. He's kind of trying to retool a little bit from the mass amount of trades that didn't pan out at the deadline last year to help stabilize not just the current 26 man, but also the insurance policies down there in Toledo that can be, hopefully relied on if they need to be called up. So that's kind of what I see this signing as. And again, great call out with the Quiet Job news, because that flew under the radar, honestly. I didn't know no one was really talking about it. And then it's a big hole to fill, though. So we'll see. If we have to use him, it might mean we don't sign anyone else to close out that 5th spot that would be void right now as a result. But, we'll see. It's still barely the second week of December. So there's still a lot of free agency time left for Harris to swing another for starter if he needs to.
Yeah, a quote from Scott Harris. He made a really good impression in the spring in 2024. I thought he worked really well with our pitching group. I thought he accessed some additional velocity and fastball quality that he carried to Korea with him. Korea was able to hold his velocity across a big workload for a starter. So, yeah, I mean, he pitched a ton of innings and increased his velocity. Looks like he struck out a bunch of guys. Anderson's 193 batting average allowed was the lowest among qualified KBO pitchers. So he sounds like he dominated over there, but his ERA was pretty, 3.89. So what, he probably gave a bunch of home runs up? I don't know. For another top. So, but in more exciting, let's see what we got here. Who are you guys talking to? I don't know what that means. Yeah, okay. So in bigger news, obviously, one thing that was on our agenda when we talked about high priority was signing Kyle Finnegan. For those viewing visually, obviously you see his picture there, and he signed yesterday, I think. 2 years, $19 million. There was some mutual interest. He talked about wanting to come back to Detroit, and he was a big addition, probably our most effective addition at the trade deadline. He did a good job of shoring up the back end of our bullpen. I don't know if he's a bona fide closer at this point, but I don't know if he's a bona fide closer at this point, but yeah, it was essential that we address the bullpen. But yeah, that with I guess with guys like Edwin Diaz off the board, Devin Williams, who else on the Ryan Helsley. It was important that we go out and get Finnegan before he fell off the board. But what are your thoughts on Kyle Finnegan?
Right. It was a great match at the deadline. Like you said, both sides expressed interest to re-engage that relationship and continue. And I think it made the most sense considering who else we've paid in the last 2 years that didn't work out. I mean, this almost feels like kind of a steal in that aspect. So do I expect the same output as he did with us down the stretch? Probably not, but we get 85-90% of that next year over the course of the season. He's going to end up being a very reliable and dependent piece on the back end of that bullpen, or at least in key leverage situations of which he's proven he can handle.
Yeah, and I see us, still address because they made a statement saying that they plan to go after some guys, go after some more bullpen guys. But I think Kyle Finnegan is probably the highest end of the bullpen side of things. But I think that some people would have been up in arms if we couldn't secure him. I mean, he's older. So it's not like he was a highly sought after guy. He's not a big strikeout guy, and he made it apparent out the gate, I want to be a Tiger. I think that once the big names came off the board, and he I think that if somebody went out of their way to spend a boatload of money, hey, the Tigers would have had to ante up. But I think it was one of those things that there was a mutual agreement. If we can come to a common ground, we'll make it happen. So I'm pleased with that. Shout out to JJ17. You're a Cubs fan. That's okay. Even though you got a Cardinals guy in the picture, so I don't know what that means. He said they should bring back Jim Leland in the bullpen. The
Smoking
coach.
cigarettes out there, that'd be hilarious. Forget
Yeah,
trash
well,
cans. You got chain smoking out there for the signals.
right. But yeah, those are the two signings that we have right now. Outside what we've done as far as addressing the starting pitching and the back end of our bullpen, what specific, maybe not a specific player unless you have one in your mind, but what particular position would you like us to address as we currently stand right now with Scooble? Obviously, we've got an ace right now, but
Yeah, it's I think we mentioned third base, but it's also like, okay, what do we want, or what we as fans are seeing where the lack of production was at the most? And I think arguably, almost unarguably, it was third base with all the names we've had in there to help stabilize it. But that would kind of counter to the platoon approach that AJ is infatuated with, employing again for what will be this third year in a row. So that would kind of defeat the purpose and the flexibility of that. So while I think third base ideally would make the most sense, probably what we've seen more recently is potentially another outfielder, which I don't know how that would work with the current guys. Obviously, someone will go down, but I guess that's a formality at that point. But to the point, I think if it's not going to be a bat, I think you do have to go get another arm. You're not going to bank on Job coming back in. And if he does come back cleared, ready to throw in September, I don't know how good he's going to be and where you're going to cap him at coming out of that. So I would imagine the following year he'd be capped a little bit too, depending on off season. But I think it would have to be a most likely a starting pitcher, because if it gets a little shaky, it does get a little shaky after Flaherty and those guys. So if not, then definitely another bullpen, preferably a high leverage guy. But that'd be it for me if it's not third base.
And I don't know how I keep forgetting about Troy Melton when I talk about the starting pitching rotation. But yeah, as of right now, you got Scooble, you got Flaherty, you got Olsen, you got Melton, and then you got a number of guys that could possibly be starting pitching. Obviously, now you have Anderson, you got Montero. Obviously, Job is down the road, so you're not even talking about Job. But yeah, I guess it's a competition for number 5, but not bad. Solid as far as that's concerned. But you talked about the corner outfield. Let's say the Tigers do nothing as far as going out and addressing that role. So you got Kerry Carpenter, who's probably going to platoon, play some DH, play some corner outfield between Perez, Vierling, Malloy, Jones. Who's how many people do you see being the odd man out, and who do you think that is out of, I'll say it one more time, Jones, Santiago, Jones, Perez, Vierling, and Malloy?
Hey, you saw Parker Meadows in there too.
Well, right now, Parker Meadows is, I guess you assume, I was more so talking about corner outfield, because I mean, somebody's got to play center field every day. Our boy is a very big advocate for Javi being the everyday center fielder. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I don't think that's a good idea. But obviously Vierling, I think Vierling and Perez have the edge because they can play center and corner. That much I do feel like that I know with full certainty, but I'm gonna let you answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been pretty adamant about throughout the year, that is with JHM and him not getting his fair shots, and Sweeney was always the default call up based on what they had going on with Sweeney not producing really much. That hurt. So Javi's had to split a lot of time between short and center, which came out of nowhere. But I would think it would probably be JHM then, if we're going to keep Perez because of his switch hitting ability too. Small sample size, did okay last year overall as a switch hitter. There were definitely some wedge in the splits, that kind of showed us he was favoring one side more, but I think it's JHM. Didn't get the opportunity this year, which is kind of a shame. Offline, I know we've been talking about, I've been kind of adamant about him getting his chance or dealing him because of where he's at in his rookie deal and who else is behind him and the guys in front of him kind of creates that awkward situation for him. But JHM would be my guy. Jones was too good down the stretch. He's a veteran, been around, and I think he helps that locker room too.
Yeah, I've said it once, I'll say it again. I think the defense, the lack of defensive versatility and is going to affect him. I mean, he's got to be tearing the cover off the ball if he's going to stay around, which is essentially what Jahmai Jones did. Not a great defender, but he was like a 400. He had a 400 average with runners in scoring position. He destroyed left-handed pitching. So he's going to have to. I mean, he's just going to have to completely tank this spring for anything to change. So yeah, they tried out JHM at first base. Now, now doesn't mean anything because Torque plays every day, and I don't think that he can outplay. I don't think he would have to do a whole lot to, gain the fortune over Torque at this point. So, I still see trade bait. I think any between Perez and Malloy, either one of those guys could be options there. I think they'll try to hold on to Vierling because he can play third base in a pinch. He can play all over the outfield. We're going to get to a break, but I want to read this. David Gerlach, appreciate you for tuning in. I don't think you've been here before. He said, I'd like to see more consistent hitter. He had dudes that either just hit home runs in big moments or strike out in big moments. Better bat all day. Yeah, I mean, that goes all the way down, all the way up to Riley Green, who hit a ton of home runs, but wasn't very clutch. Wenzel struggled. When you say consistent, I just want a guy that can hit for more contact. We had a whole bunch of guys like Torque and Green and Meadows that all had the potential to hit for power, but struck out a boatload. So we need somebody that has better bat to ball skills. I'll die on this hill that Ryan O'Hearn would be perfect in that situation. Plays great defensive first base. He's another lefty, unfortunately, but he was consistent all year. So let's get to the first break, and then we're going to see what there is to talk about on the other end of that. That was actually an ad for my hip hop show, Midwest Ciphers. Got to pay the bills, But if anybody is a hip hop fan, that's a channel that you can tune into. Brand new channel. We mix the sports with the hip hop as well. We from Michigan. We from the Motor City, so music is just as much king as sports. But wouldn't be a Tiger show if we didn't talk about Tarek Skubal. I don't know, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to say what you need to say, but I don't know what to make of it. The Dodgers obviously have a rich farm system. They have a team that they have a front office that's willing to spend money, and there seems to be some smoke. We talked about it a little bit last time. But there appears to be some rumors about a proposed trade. Would you care to tell us who would be involved in that trade? And do you feel like there's legitimate smoke, or do you feel like these are just rumors floating around?
It's funny because we've over Twitter over the last month or so, there's been some rage moments with some other insiders allegedly calling each other liars and whatnot. So, I mean, we take most of this with a grain of salt, but, for the most part, the mainstream line inside guys are usually right and have early drops. So, again, we'll take this with a grain of salt. Although it had been, I don't want to say rumored, but it had been speculated that the Dodgers would be one of a few teams that could afford an extension of a Skubal projected, $350, $400 million in total. is what a number allegedly could be with him or projected they're valuing him. But essentially coming back in the trade to Detroit would be Tyler Glasnow, who signed a 5-year, $136 million extension originally 2 years ago. So we'd only have 3 years left on that deal at $27.2 million a year. And then 2 top 20 prospects coming back, one being right-hand pitcher Emmett Sheehan and outfielder Zaire Hope, both within the top 20 of LA's organization. There'll be 3 players coming back for Skubal. And Skubal, we'll just say he gets the $350 from LA. They're essentially paying him an extra $250 million more for the same one pitcher back. So thoughts, value, like see someone else?
Yeah, I mean, I am at peace with that. Obviously, Glasnow is up there in age, but we would have a considerable amount of control. I think that he keeps our timeline rolling as far as us having a high-end left-handed pitcher for the next couple of years. Whereas if we don't find a deal, we now have to go and scramble and find one. Even though he is getting up there in age. And of course, we would love to have Skubal, who's in the prime of his career and doesn't seem to be slowing down. But in addition to that, Sheehan is another guy. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's got high-end stuff. He's got, a lot of swing and miss in his stuff. And he's 26 years, he's 26 years old. So he's pretty young. We would have quite a bit of control with him as well. So you're getting 2 pitchers. You're getting 2 pitchers for the price of one. One that's a little bit older, and one that has the potential to be a high end starter for the next year to come. That you can kind of couple with Troy Milton, Jackson Jobe, Casey Mize when we eventually, hopefully, maybe lock him in. He was I don't know. I think the fan base is kind of up in the air about whether their belief in him, but. 14-6 or 14-9, whatever it was last year. He was solid. We got Flaherty for another year. He's a vet. And Olsen, you got a nice little rotation there. You got Glasnow, you got Sheehan, you got Olsen, Flaherty, Job down the line. But in the meantime, you fill in with Montero. You got a nice little. And did I forget Melton again? I don't know. But
no.
Did I say him? Okay, so yeah, you got a nice pitching. You got a nice pitching staff right there, and then Zaire Hope is a top 20 prospect right now. He's 20 years old. He's got some good raw power. He's a guy. Obviously, we are looking. Scott Harris doesn't want to go out and pay big money and long-term money for any type of bet. So, if you can bolster your farm system with another power bat, you can't lose there. We got a lot of infielders. You got Briseño, you got Lorenzo, you got McGonigal. These are all infielders. You got Hyu Lee, you got Valencia. These are all infielders. The only you got Bryce Rainier too. These are all infielders. The only top end outfielder you have is Max Clark, and that's in center field. You don't have any high end corner outfielders right now. So Zaire Hope, and of course, Zaire Hope is I think he's like a top 2 in the Dodgers system. That may be on a no trade list for all we know. But in a perfect world, I'll take it. Because Skubal's not coming back. Glasnow, Sheehan, Zaire Hope, I'll take it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a nice little segue. It's a slower transition or a less harsher transition off of what would be a Skubal extension down the road at that number. Not so much, the timing of it. It's just the number of it, considering what little we're spending. Now suddenly that seems like such an enormous number that we have to swallow in that regard. But I think it's a 2-type play here. you do the obvious, right? You get a couple pieces, you get MLB proven guy now for the rest of his deal. But I think what's more important underneath it is him only having 3 more years gives you about 2 years of flexibility when he comes off the books. Now all that money that you would have been dumping into Skubal, guys like Job, Reese Olson aren't going to be coming around. And to your point too, Casey Mize more immediately, because he only has 1 more year too of team control. And then it'll be unrestricted free agency for him. All those 3 guys in the next 3 years will become available looking for more money. And I think in addition to what you might go out and get a bat, if it's not this offseason, but next year, I'm assuming down the road, at some point they're going to have to sign a keep just calling up these rookies year over year over year. You're going to blow right through them. But all those 4 guys collectively all that money would be dispersed amongst most of them. So I think it's a long-term value play too, which, hate to say it, is fitting the Dollar Tree approach here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the obvious idea is that 2 pitchers is better than 1. Granted, Skubal is, I don't even know what his wins above replacement is, but he kind of accounts for a couple different pitchers because he's just that good. But starting pitchers only pitch 1 every 5 days. So if you get 2 that pitch 1 every 5 days, you win in that regards. But yes, when it's time for guys like Mize, Olson, et cetera, they're going to cost a fraction of what Skubal is. So you're going to have more value as far as that's concerned. And you also have more opportunities for failure because all these guys aren't going to, maybe Olson is always going to be hurt. We don't know. So, if we can manage to, like, maybe Olson doesn't work out, but maybe Melton does, or maybe Job does, but whatever the case may be, if we're not going to be a team that's just constantly spending money, because I don't think the Dodgers worry about failure. If they fail, they'll just cut them and find somebody else. But teams like us, we have to play the numbers game and stockpile prospects. So yeah, that's the Skubal thing. This may mean nothing. Somebody has already come out and made a report saying that this is that is a nothing burger and not true. But who knows? We know one thing we do know is that if there was ever a team that could afford to trade for him and think that they have the best option to sign him, it's the Dodgers. So we have to take that into consideration. The Mets thing sounds cool. They do have some nice prospects, but it's looking like they don't like to spend money. We'll get to it, but they've already let a couple guys. Already let a couple guys go. Juan Soto being the one guy that they did go out and spend some money on. So the Dodgers seem very realistic, and they have some appealing guys worth looking at. But outside of that, as far as outside of Skubal, Ketel Marte has been in the news, and the Tigers, and they said that the Tigers have put their hat in the ring as an interested party. He is a all-star caliber second baseman. He's hit close to 30 plus home runs the last couple years. He's a switch hitter, which, you got to love because we need righties. So obviously he can play both. And he's got some good bat to ball skills. He's got a very low K rate, and a very high walk rate. So he's a good contact hitter, which is exactly, of course we love power, but we also need guys that are not going to strike out. So he's kind of a perfect candidate for us, outside of the fact that Gleyber Torres took his accepted his qualifying offer. So that kind of blocks second base from somebody. And then I think Ketel Marte is on a pretty good team friendly deal as well. Let me pull that up. Contract. He is 32 years old. What were you going to say?
I was going to say I got his last year's summarized savant stats from a hitting standpoint. Okay. Weighted OBA was considered top tier elite. His expected weighted OBA, expected to perform even better, was 390. Barrel percentage, 28th in Major League Baseball overall. Hard hit percentage was 47%, considered elite. And exit velocity, almost 91 miles an hour. A little bit on the low side, to your point, but he's more of a contact hitter, so that's not really a concern, if you will. If he does start popping it out, sweet. But to your point, contact, ball, bat to ball.
Yeah. So there's a lot to like about him. He's I don't know if he has the ability to move around and play a couple of different positions, but somebody would have to move between him and Gleyber Torres unless Gleyber was in that deal, which I don't know if they would do that or not. I mean, it's just a 1-year deal and would be keep them, they would get some decent production from him. But yeah, so the fellas over at the Foul Territory had a couple proposed deals, and I'm just going to kind of go through them, and you let me know what it sounds the most appealing to you. You're familiar with everybody outside of maybe one guy, but okay. First deal is Troy Melton, Sawyer Gibson-Long, and Max Anderson for Ketel Marte. That's the first one. What are your thoughts on that one? Troy Melton obviously being the sweet deal, the sweetest part of the deal for them.
I mean, if we're assuming we're not going to, again, if the rosters are firm now, wiping off any potential Skubal exiting this offseason, man, I want to say yes, but to the point where we would re-sign Skubal, because that's the only reason that would make sense, to go get a quality player like Marte, who actually improved a lot of his approach last year to become a more patient hitter in that aspect. So it's a nice fit, but that'd be tough. Do we know if you said Marte has how many years left, or would he just be a rental?
So he is locked in until 2031 with a player option when he'll be 37, and he'll be making it's going to ascend, but it says 14, 16, 12, 20, 20, 20. So after a while, he'll be making $20 million, but he is locked in until 2031 when he has a player option, which he can opt in.
Man, I don't even know if he would get rid of so he says Melton, SGL, and Max Clark or Anderson?
Anderson.
Second base. Okay.
Infield. But yeah. Well, second or third. We'll say that.
Okay, third. Okay, I was gonna say, because then you'd still have Gleyber in that spot then. So you go Gleyber 2, Ketel third, whatever it's short, and then I guess Colt will just see time whenever he gets time.
Whenever. Hey, maybe some DH. First base, maybe.
Yeah.
Wouldn't play much third because Ketel would have to play third. But the years of control. I mean, my biggest worry, the biggest worry is giving away your best, starting pitcher for the foreseeable future. That's my only concern, because SGL is a throw-in.
Yeah. I mean, that's
because Gleyber's only going to be. You're going to have to find a place for Gleyber to play for 1 year. He can be gone, and Marte can go back to second.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and you can go back to Colt, experiment, or whatever we want to do at third. I guess that's a little down the road, but I think for the value and longevity of Marte, I do like that version. Like you said, SGL is a throwaway, so we're really we're getting rid of Skubal and a prospect for an MLB guy that we're going to have locked up for the next 6 years. Yeah.
So that's just the first one, because I'm going to be honest with you. I like the second two better. So the next one is Kiter Montero. His last name is Witherspoon. He was drafted. This is a pitching prospect. I think he's going to play in the bullpen, but he was drafted pretty high last year. And Thayron Lorenzo.
Oh man, yeah, I I don't even think I have to review that a second time. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
both not
Witherspoon's
bad.
is
That's the best.
yeah. I mean the best prospect out of that you can argue is either the Witherspoon guy who I think he went in the second round for what it's worth, a second round pitching prospect, and Thayron Lorenzo. I mean, he's cool, but he's not Josue Briseño. So it's like, if I got to worry about giving up Briseño, what am I really losing with Lorenzo? And then Kiter Montero, we love him, but it's probably something that the Diamondbacks hang up their phone. This last one is kind of spicy. Casey Mize and Cole Keith straight up for Ketel Marte. Knowing that we could still lose Skubal.
Yeah. I say yeah, because now you have an extra piece at second base in the organization collectively to trade out to offset losing Mize, because you would still have Max Anderson and Glaber and now Ketel Marte. So someone's got to go in that regard, in addition to Colt already going, because you're not, nothing's changing from the quantity of players at that position. It's just a 1-for-1 pretty much. So I think you would have more to play with in terms of sending someone else to get another player back of need for position.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. Cole Keith hasn't. I think they would like it from the perspective of he's locked in similar to Marte for a long time. He's a good young player that can obviously play a number of positions, but you can plug and play him anywhere. If they need a first baseman, boom. If they need a second baseman, boom. If they need a third baseman, whatever. He's a lefty, they like lefties. So, yeah, appealing for them, and they're looking for pitching right now. So, you can another plug-in right now player, Casey Mize, to be anywhere. I think Zach Gallen a free agent?
I think he might have one more year, because I've heard his name come up a few times.
In trades.
But I think because that's the only reason that would make sense is if he's still under contract. Well, I would imagine there's one more year. Otherwise, I don't think he'd be as hot of a name, because he didn't have that great of a year, although his name came up at the deadline. It's more of like a veteran stabilization piece than a number one, number two go-getter. But,
yeah. So, so they definitely need pitching in Casey Mize. I mean, he was an all-star last year for what it, I mean, we kind of know, we're privy to a little bit more, but they look at it from 14 wins, all-star. I like it. They don't know that he had a kind of a shaky second half of the year. So, but yeah, I like, I'm not crazy about giving up Troy Melton and Max Anderson. I think the Montero and Witherspoon and Lorenzo is kind of I think both I don't think Arizona takes that deal, but the Casey Mize and Cole Keith is appealing, would be appealing for them. So yeah, Ketel Marte, good bat to ball skills, doesn't strike out. He walks, he's got good power, and he's a switch hitter. That's just about everything we need. He's just older. He's older. He's under control until he's like 37, which is a little bit scary, but would cover our second base for the foreseeable future, because we'll need to find, we know that McGonigal is going to be somewhere on the left side, shortstop, third base. He's going to be one of those moving forward in the future. But Marte would solidify our second base position. So that is what we had as far as, just trade rumors. We're going to get to the next break and then talk about the rest of the league. All right. So as it's the winter meetings, you said the winter meetings is almost over.
Yeah, I think today, if not the end of the week, ends the session. So it's coming to a close here soon, after like a week of a lot of minor league deals, some back end 40-man stuff But to button up the point about Zach Gallen, he actually is a free agent. He rejected the qualifying offer, which was $22.025 million. So I would essentially assume that he is looking for more AAV than that. So far, it looks like the Braves have offered. Now, whether the numbers were made public or not, it's speculated that they are going to predict give him about 5 years, $135 million on that. But Detroit is on that list of teams interested. And after last year, I don't take any stock in all these reports. Oh, Detroit are linked to this guy, or they've rumored to be in talks with. So is Harris with 100 other people in the offseason. It doesn't mean anything. But the Braves, Tigers, Cubs, Giants, Angels, and Orioles are among the teams allegedly in position best to land him, for what that's worth.
Gallen, you're saying?
Yeah, the number seems to be between 5 and 135 and 6 and 138. Or if he wants to go short end, the projected is somewhere around 2 for 45 with an opt out. So again, back to that issue of, okay, guys past his first major deal, wants many years, isn't going to get it, so we'll just get a higher AAV for shorter years in that aspect. But any thoughts on that before we move on for the rest of the league?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, when they started talking about Gallen's a name that there hasn't been a whole lot of like major press about, but yeah, when you start seeing people that are interested, it's like I don't know. I'll wait to see when the smoke clears, because there's always a lot of that. But we have started to see some big names move around. Kyle Schwarber has found a home back in Philly. They did show that the Reds made an offer. The Orioles made an offer, which was interesting to me, but less interesting now, considering knowing what we know now about the Baltimore Orioles. But who do you feel like it has made the most power moves? Is it Toronto? Is it who do you think is really making moves right now?
I think so far the teams you've mentioned and we've talked about, the Dodgers went out and got a high profile, high leverage reliever, and ultimately it was who they're bringing back. I mean, I don't even know if you'd say they're reloaded; they just stayed loaded. If Philly did the news about the Orioles and Schwarber is interesting. Imagine because he was the first domino of the big names bats to fall, which I know we kind of know now, a little bit later in following the sport, that a lot of the big name guys, top 10 guys, will wait for that first guy to sign. So then it stabilizes the market for the rest of those guys that kind of are in that tier group to then start signing. It's kind of how the way it works. But yeah, Schwarber, 5 years, $150 million, $30 a year. Not bad. He'll probably end his career there. He'll be closer to his mid to later 30s. Alonso, 5 years, $155 to Baltimore. Also interesting. I think he's going to end up crushing it in that ballpark. I want to say for a lefty, it's a little bit smaller than the Mets. I could be wrong on that. But New York stays small on both ends. Edwin Diaz, the Dodgers, 3 years, $69 million. It came out that he wanted $5 million from the Mets, and they balked at that. So he packed up his bags and is heading to the West Coast. After that, the Yankees turned to Devin Williams, signed him 3 years, $51 million. The Mets did after a very tumultuous year with the Yankees last year, which I do believe he lost his role, high leverage role in the bullpen throughout the year. And a little lesser degree signing, but still a veteran guy, Tampa signing Steve Metz, pitcher, 2 years, $15 million. And the only big non-player signing was the Phillies extending their manager, Rob Thompson, through 2027, just 1 year added on. To note, he's only one of 4 MLB managers in history to start his first 4 years with a new club and make the playoffs in each of those first 4 years. As we were talking offline, that's a pretty incredible stat, but I think it shows baseball in the last 40 years has been a fairly top heavy for a lot of the big market organizations in terms of year over year winning and consistency compared to some of the smaller and mid market organizations.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I see, I don't know what happened first, if it was the Helsley signing or the trade for Taylor Ward, but it's pretty obvious that Baltimore is trying to compete in the AL East. Obviously, Toronto came out of the AL. Yeah, Toronto came out of the AL East and got to the World Series, but after a down year from Baltimore, they immediately went out and got a high leverage closer. They traded for a power bat in the corner, and then they went after Pete Alonso. Now, when I saw that they offered, I think what Philly matched what Baltimore offered, right?
Yeah, based on the reports, that seems to be the case. If not, they were almost, within, a marginal difference, almost nominal.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that they offered the same amount of money, he just said, well, I'll just go back to Philly. That's kind of where he wanted to be anyways. But the fact that they took such a big swing at Schwarber let me know that they were willing to spend money. So not surprised from there that they went out and got Alonso. So, that's a hitter ballpark. They already have some good young players like Gunnar Henderson, Holiday. They're hoping to break out. So they're making some moves. They didn't pitch very well. I think they hit for some pretty decent power, but you bring in Taylor Ward and Alonso, that's 30 home runs apiece. 40 plus, I think, from Alonso, pretty close to 40.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a team that's going to score a ton of runs if they can get some pitching in there or get some guys back off an injury. I think that they're going to try to make a push to make some moves on the Yankees. Who else is in the Boston? And of course, that was kind of a loss for Boston because Boston was kind of linked to Pete Alonso as well. So, very interesting developments. But yeah, outside of that, the Mets, obviously they went out and got Devin Williams, but they lose Diaz and Alonso. So as I kind of preluded earlier about them not wanting to spend, like you said, Diaz wanted the longer term deal, and it looks like they said that they didn't even extend an offer, an official offer to Pete Alonso. So after because he had a player, did he have a player option going into this year that he turned down? I know he re-signed for 1 year. One of the two, he did basically turn him down, but it was interesting. I don't know why it was noteworthy, but I guess he drove to the winter meetings himself from wherever he's got a house in Florida down there, apparently. But I was like, okay, so he's driving in person. It's 90 minutes out. It seemed weird that was a noteworthy report, but it seemed like, well, too, remember, the Mets traded Brendan Nimmo like last week. Right.
They shipped him out.
Who plays outfield? He plays outfield, right?
I thought he was an infielder. Could be wrong on that, but he was the longest tenured Met left on that team. So I think it was a locker room transition too. They're trying to reshape the culture there with the Mets organization going forward. So a lot of not just big names, but I think fan favorite names too. So that team will look a bit different heading into next year. But to your point about Baltimore and the Yankees, yeah, that AL East is disgusting. There's really no team you can kind of tick off in the series now. Those teams should be all competitive. And I think, honestly, Boston trading Devers and almost still making the playoffs, I think from a value standpoint, they're going to make out better than Toronto or the Yankees or the Orioles, who are shelling out tens and tens of millions of dollars right now.
Yep. So as far as big names left, obviously there's still some out there. Whoever gets Kyle Tucker, that's going to really swing things, whether that's Toronto,
Houston.
Yeah, well, I've been seeing that. I don't know if that's going to play out, but yeah, possibly Houston. LA, of course, could always be in the workings. But you got Cody Bellinger, who could possibly go back to being a Yankee, or he could go elsewhere. Who else is? What are the hot names out there? Because Naylor and Alonso are off the board.
You still have
Yeah.
Suarez out there, right? Eugenio
Well, yeah,
Suarez.
So pitching wise, you got both Suarez's. You got Framber Valdez. Yeah, those are the big names. Michael King is still out there. Yeah. So not a lot of big high profile names, but yeah, there's no telling from that point where folks go. But yeah, Tucker and Bellinger being the highest end as far as bats are concerned, and both Suarez guys and Valdez being the big arms. So and then Bregman. Can't forget about Bregman. Because he might go back to Boston.
I think he will. There's no other major market club that makes sense right now, and they like him. And
I think it's 50-50 Boston and Detroit.
What are we going to pay him? $40 million for 1 year? I mean, we gave him his terms for years, and he still took the more money with Boston. I think honestly, he's already made that clear, that decision. I think this is no different. It's going to come down to money and Frank, let's be honest here. Fenway, Comerica. I mean, if we were spending, sure, it'd be a lure, but
go back and play with AJ. His best years. Well, I guess all of his years, but
I mean, with all the talks AJ had with Correa 2 years ago and with Bregman last year, I don't think that holds much water at this point. Otherwise, he would have been with us last year.
Right. You're right.
So I don't think it runs that deep.
No. Yeah. What's a World Series worth?
I don't know. Apparently, Harris doesn't know the meaning of it. To your point, I know we're kind of running up here in a little bit longer show, but anything you want to comment in terms of Scott Harris's comments that we all looked at each other last week? We're like, the hell is this guy talking about?
You know what? I think bat-wise, I don't think we're that far off. We do have, you got Green, you got Carpenter, Torque, but you got some young talent that can possibly pan out. All of them aren't going to pan out, but I think that I think McGonigal can provide us something as far as bat to ball, contact guy. I just think that if we could bring in an everyday corner outfielder, I would be content with that and thinking that between the young guys we can be okay. I don't see any decline from a Green, Carpenter, Torque. I think we just need one solidified corner bat and I would be cool. He said that he plans to build from within the organization, and that's a little disappointing, but just a contact bat, somebody that doesn't strike out 100 times, 100 plus times a year, and I can be content with McGonigal, Anderson, Valencia. I mean, I don't know if any of these guys legitimately can take over right now and be everyday, and be major league players, but I don't think that we're that far. The bigger issue is how we're going to replace Skubal down the road, more so than the bat category. So, yeah. There's only so many big names left right now. Like I said, if it's not Tucker, Bregman, or Bellinger, it's not going to be a big name. It's not going to be a big name regardless. Alonso's off the board now, so that's off the table. Not that was ever on the table. Bichette, if you want to take the big swing and go get Bichette, I'm cool with that. And we can revisit this once he goes to Atlanta or back to Toronto. But That's that's an option too, but we'll see. I know there's things that you want to say. I would get that off. Get that off.
No, yeah, it's a great point. You know, we kind of get lost in shuffle after we were, all about him, 2 weeks ago. But now that we've introduced the mock Ketel Marte trades, his terms and his improvement from an offensive standpoint kind of looks a bit better than Bichette, who will end up costing them more on a long-term extension after his rookie deal. So another thing that to keep in mind that I think we can go into further detail on our next show about, including the rotation. So I think there's a lot to unpack there from a departure standpoint, where you get back, and then who you have internally in the organization that you can hope you can count on. But to your point about the other prospects and non-pitching guys, I think the one thing we need to remind everyone is like, hey, we're not expecting these guys to come in and play Jesus Christ, Lord our Savior, and fix all the problems that the offense has had in that aspect. There's going to be some learning curve, some bumps. There usually are when these kids get to the major league level. Jackson Holliday didn't have a great showing, and it looked like people wanted to jettison him at the end of the year, and the dude barely played half of an MLB season. So there's a lot of pressure in that regard too, and I don't think Harris really wants to do that to these guys. Otherwise, some of these guys would be up earlier than they would have been if that was the case in terms of rushing them. They've been really deliberate about developing them, which I think is a good foundation to have. You don't push anyone you don't necessarily need to unless it's out of pure necessity. But, I think part of last year too and heading to this year, the injuries. A lot of these guys stay healthy at least 75% of the time. Dude, that should help some of the suffrage that they had as a result before and after the injury too. So I think we take some of that into context and say, okay, healthy players after that, if they're still struggling, okay, we know it's mechanics that can be worked. But if they're not available to play, then it really hurts their value and the overall production that this team could end up outputting.
Yeah. And another possible option, obviously, another possible option if we don't go with Bichette or Bregman is Ha-Seong Kim. We were linked to him last year. He ended up going to Tampa Bay. Obviously, we knew that he wasn't going to be ready for the start of the year, which was obviously a deterrent for a team that needed a third baseman right now. But he's a guy that has good speed, doesn't strike out, walks a ton, so he's going to get on base. Plays good defense as well. You can plug him in and play, all over the infield, shortstop, third base. Doesn't have a ton of pop. Not gonna hit a boatload of home runs. Let's see what he hit. He hit 17 in 2023, so that's not horrible. But we need somebody. We need somebody that can get on base. Is going to put the ball in play, and obviously he's going to spray it all over the gigantic outfield that is Comerica Park. So he signed a 1 year deal with Tampa Bay. He ended up in Atlanta. I think he hit a home run in that series. Did we go to an Atlanta Braves game? I think in that series he hit a home run against us. I'm almost certain.
I thought we played them almost at the end of the year.
Yeah, it was. But I think we went to the game because we were getting. Yeah. This is when we didn't know whether we were going to make the playoffs or not. And we showed up late and it was already 6-0.
They wore their red uniforms all week. You know why? Because the freaking Blue Jays wore their red uniforms and swept us. We lost that whole week to red uniforms. Now I remember. Okay.
Yeah. So Kim was on that team, and I think he was playing shortstop. So we got a up close look at him, and he's just a good baseball player. We need speed, we need contact guys, we need somebody that can play defense. And up until 2024, he was he was relatively healthy as well. So if they're not content with giving McGonigal one of those left side of the infield positions, obviously I hope they're not holding their breath that Trey Sweeney's going to come around. I hope that's not a spot that they're just holding for dear life. So maybe there's still going to be a spot open, but just somebody to keep an eye on. But by next week, we should have some more stuff to talk about, hopefully. Any other closing words as we get up out of here?
No, that's about it. I think our next show will probably focus a bit more on Detroit and next year and what looks like beyond. But of course, we still have the biggest domino TBD, I guess, until we get to spring training. Once that kicks off, after that point, I don't think there will be any opportunity to deal Scooble, or at least that would make sense at that point. So we'll see. We hold the biggest chip in all baseball, and if it does fall, it will be the loudest splash for this offseason.
Yep, and the entire major leagues will probably hate us if Scooble ends up in the Dodger uniform, because that is going to be a nasty pitching staff with him involved in that. So, but yeah, other than that, subscribe to Bleachers to Speakers and Corner of the Copa as well. We're simulcasting on both platforms, and stay tuned. If something big comes up, we'll definitely shoot out a quick short to everybody, and then if like I said, we got to do an emergency show. That's just what it is. Stay tuned. We'll be back sometime next week, Sunday, maybe. We'll see. But see you soon.
Peace.
Get your lick back. If a nigga gon' do something, ain't no chit chat. Better stay up out the way, don't get your shit